Super quick, guys. If you guys are interested in any Kia models at all whatsoever or any pre-owned vehicles, come check out Rickcase Kia at Sunrise, Florida. They have a lot of good deals going on, including a nice warranty package. Obviously, with Kia models, you can go all the way to 200,000 mile warranty if you like. So if interested, come check out Kia at Rickcase. Finding a hybrid nowadays has become a lot more difficult, and it's not because they're rare, they're just everywhere. What used to be the Toyota Prius, every other brand now has a hybrid powertrain, and the Kia Niro has always been one of those vehicles that has been relatively popular. And now since we're on the second generation, it is now more difficult to pick and choose whether you should get the first generation or the second generation, and that's what we're here to find out.
All right, so in the 2024 Niro, we are sitting in the inside of a Niro. I really like the improvements that Kia has done in the interior. Mind you, I've had a loaner Kia Niro before. It was a 2021 model, so the interior, it was great. It had quite a bit of space, surprisingly, for how small that SUV is. So I was very impressed with what they did to the Niro, and honestly, I fell in love with them. Kind of considering one. But now sitting in the 2024, I noticed that the steering wheel is kind of strange. That's number one. I mean, it's not bad or anything like that. The button assortments is a little bit overwhelming at first, but after kind of like playing with it for a little bit, it's not the worst in the world. I've dealt with worse, honestly. I've driven a Mercedes and that gave me anxiety, so there you go. But the dual screens that you have up in the front, the gauge cluster itself, it's strange, but it's nice. I like the assortment of that. They did a really good job with that. And you also do have a nice 12.5 screen here in the middle, where it does have a sound system to where Kia has implemented their own music in here. It's freaking strange, but it's there, apparently. So anyways, you do also have a Harman Kardon sound system in here. Granted, this is the fully loaded model, so it's an SX. So obviously you're gonna have some decent options in here. But going forward from that, in the center area, you're gonna have your same 6-speed dual clutch transmission that pretty much all the other Kia hybrids have. You also do have heated and cooled seats. You have a starter button right here on the side, and you do have your electronic parking brake. So honestly, the materials in here are a lot more recyclable materials, if that makes sense. However, it has dramatically improved a lot. I like the material choices that they have used. I mean, it's recyclable material, but it still feels really nice in here. The seating position for me is a little bit high, but it's not like it's the worst on the planet. For one, I still sit very nice. I can rest my arm here and I will have no problem just driving at this position. I also do have my window switches up here where it kind of feels like I'm like at a ladder or something like that. These mirrors do fold too, so that's something nice to have. And you also do have your window switches here, lock and unlock. Your two windows, they roll down automatically. The back windows, you have to hold them down in order for them to roll down. So it's something to just kind of point out there. It's not the end of the world type of thing, but it's just something I wanted to say. And what I will also say is that the AC controls are identical in here to the new Sportage. So obviously you have to kind of switch to whatever lane you want, whether you want a stereo setup or you want AC. So they simplify the interior significantly rather than just, you know, putting a bunch of buttons for radio controls to AC controls. They put it in one little screen where you can switch it. So I think it's pretty genius. They've done it in the Sportage, and I actually kind of like that setup pretty well. And it was also very sensitive. So that's something that I wanted to point out there. My fear when it comes to touch sensitive buttons and everything like that is the not so sensitivity area. That's something that I have to complain about that Cadillac has done before. This one is relatively sensitive and it's very quick to respond. So I can basically put the AC up very quickly and everything like that. Something that I actually appreciate with the Kia Niro, specifically the 2024 one. Down here at the bottom, you do have some nice storage. The center console area is not big. I will say that it's a very narrow area in here. You can fit a couple things in there, but it also, you have to keep in mind there is some extra storage right here in the front, and you can hide your cup holders in so you can have some extra storage here in the middle. So that's something to keep in mind of. Now, if you do want to hold some drinks and everything like that, you can of course push that in and you'll be perfectly fine. So that's something that I just want to keep in mind of. Of course, the older Niro doesn't have this type of setup or anything like that. Kia's kind of like changed the way they can store materials in here. They can store everything in here to make the interior more simplified, but still relatively easy to use, very intuitive, and overall great. I like the interior on this Niro a lot. They have improved a lot. So anyways, let's jump in the back seat of the 2024 Niro, and then we'll basically start going from a comparison back to back. All right, so sitting in the back seat of a 2024 Kia Niro, I do notice that there's quite a bit of space back here as well. So for one, you do have some interesting features in here that the original one does not. So for one, I will start off with USB-Cs right here on the side of the seats. I'm gonna find out what the other one has compared, because these are both fully loaded models. You also do have a strange little storage compartment here on the bottom. You do have AC vents right here in the back seat, and you have this little weird hanger thing that I guess Kia is starting to do, where you can hang some extra groceries and stuff back over here. Now, one thing that I can say that this thing does give me a lot of vibes about is the amount of recyclable materials that are in here compared to the previous one. So I have driven a Kia Niro before as a loaner before, so the materials in that car feels relatively normal. This one, they went for a more environmental friendly vibe, if that makes sense. For one, the headliner in here, it's definitely a recyclable materials in here. You can definitely tell right off the bat. What you also do have is these LED lights on the top over here, which is pretty nice to have. And these seats, I don't think it's real leather. I think it's like a recyclable leather or something like that. They feel great. It has a good amount of plush. I do notice that this seat, the back seats, do have a little bit of like a lumbar support on me. So that's something that I just kind of want to point out there. However, it has a good amount of comfort. I have great leg space back here. I can put my feet right underneath the seat, and I can fit perfectly fine back here with zero issues at all whatsoever. So I will say the new Niro has a great interior and great space that you can fit multiple people in here. Even being over 6 feet tall, I am 6 feet myself, I fit perfectly fine back here. And with an armrest here, I could just have my drink and I can vibe here for a couple hours for sure. All right, so now sitting in the inside of the 2022 Niro, we're gonna just do this really quick. In my opinion, I do like the interior better in this one than the other one. Only reason being is because I'm old school. I like analog. This one has a little bit more analog taste to it rather than the newer one. That's just my opinion though. If you like more modern technology, then the newer one is going to be absolutely for you. What I will say though is that the material use in here is a bit different than the newer one. The newer one does have more of a recyclable type of interior, so that's something that you're just going to kind of notice right away. This does have some nice soft touch plastic, so it does not entirely feel cheap. However, the headliner is your standard headliner and everything like that. It does not have that weird recyclable interior like the newer Niro does, so that's something to just kind of keep in mind of. So this feels more like a basic car in the inside rather than the newer Niro, where it really shows a define of what vehicle that is. So this one, it just feels like a normal car, it has a hybrid powertrain. What I will say though is that the infotainment system is the same exact one as the newer Niro. The newer Niro though has heated and cooled seats. This particular one does not. So that's something to just kind of keep in mind of in this car. You do have a fully digital gauge cluster here in the front, which it kind of, excuse me, it kind of looks weird, but I don't really mind that at all whatsoever. You do have the center big screen here where it tells you all of the information of the vehicle. You do also have your speedometer and fuel gauge right here on the right. And you also do have your charge mode and everything like that with your battery temperature onto the left. So this thing also does have paddle shifter, so that's kind of cool to have, since this obviously has a 6-speed automatic. The newer Niro also has a 6-speed automatic. I really like the fact that these have a regular normal transmission rather than maybe like the Atkinson cycle eCVT that majority of other hybrids use. I appreciate the fact that these things come with a 6-speed automatic rather than the eCVT. I think those are disgusting. Not that to say they're really bad or anything like that. It's just, it gives you a better feeling of driving a normal car rather than something like that. So something really cool. I really appreciate that. The interior overall, it feels great. Obviously, it does feel more dated compared to the newer one. It's just to be expected, obviously. Even though the fact that they're only like 2 years apart in this type of test. Right here in the bottom, you do have less storage inside this Niro, given the fact that this has your normal cup holders. You do have some empty buttons here that I'm assuming it was used for something. I don't know what it was. But you do have some deeper storage here on the center console area. So something to keep in mind of comparing to the newer Niro. What you also do have though, and this comes with the same thing with the other Niro as well, you do have wireless charging, a 12-volt outlet, and only USB-A's. So Yes, you do feel a lot older in this vehicle comparing to the newer model. It's honestly to be expected. You do have folding mirrors. You do have your regular normal switches here, obviously like every other car has. Adaptive cruise control is in this vehicle, so that's something great. So backseat room, also what you will notice right away, it feels like a normal car. It does have space. I do fit back there, but what I will say, I noticed the newer 2024 Niro has a little bit more backseat room than the older one. So that's something to just kind of keep in mind. If you want a little bit more space, you have that. The newer Niro does also have USB-C chargers in the back. This one doesn't have any chargers at all whatsoever. So that's something to just kind of keep in mind of. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the trunk. We're going to talk about the powertrains to see what is really the big difference between both of these vehicles. And then we're going to go on a little small drive with both of them. And we're going to just get to closing.
Trunk space in both of these are a little bit different. So first off, with the first generation Kia Niro, you do get around 19 cubic feet of space with the seats up, and with the seats down, it jumps all the way to 54 cubic feet of space. Now, with the second generation Niro, that goes up to 22 cubic feet of space with the seats up, and all the way to 63 cubic feet of space. Now, another advantage that the newer Niro has is that it does have a power tailgate, so if you want to actually put down the tailgate, you can only get it with the new Niro. Powertrains in both the Niros are virtually identical. You do get a 1.6 liter hybrid 4-cylinder via a 6-speed dual clutch transmission, so that's basically what you get in both of these. You also do have EV options and plug-in hybrid options, but we'll get to that later. But one thing that I will say that the newer Niro has a big advantage of is fuel mileage. They both get 53 miles a gallon in the city. However, the new second generation Niro gets 54 on the highway, while the previous gets 48. So I didn't drive the first generation Niro out. However, I did have one for a week when I had the loaner, and I will be honest, I fell in love with it. It's not a pretty SUV in the outside, and the interior is like any other MPC vehicle on the road. So everything is pretty much relatively easy to use. Everything is very intuitive. However, the advantage that the Niro has that majority of other cars don't is the fuel mileage. So on the highway, you do get around 40 something miles a gallon, maybe 40 to 45 miles a gallon. If you're very conservative, 48. But compared to the Niro one, this is where the second generation Niro has a huge advantage. Obviously with the aerodynamic changes and also with the platform change as well, it does have around 50 something miles a gallon on the highway. So this is a big advantage, even though the powertrains are relatively the same. They're both extremely smooth, they're both extremely quiet, and the transitions coming from the engine to the battery, from the battery to the engine is very smooth. You hardly actually feel it at all in it by any means. And with the 6-speed automatic, I will say it is a great thing to have. So as I'm driving both of these vehicles, I would say I prefer the first generation, just given the fact that it is more analog. However, when it comes to tech, the second generation Niro does beat it by miles. So let's get ready to close. Picking and choosing between one of these two, it's going to be a little bit of a difficult choice, except if you want better fuel mileage or you just want newer technology, and the newer Niro is the easy winner for you. However, both of these vehicles are very easy and very fuel efficient, and they're extremely good. So I would say the Niro is a great option to even generally look for. So if you're looking for a hybrid, give the Niro a shot. Until next time.